welcome to the Mother Days podcast. The vibes are high, and I'm your host, Sarah Wright Olson.
And I'm Teresa Palmer. We're already giggling.
Teresa Palmer's there, but for some reason we can't hear her.
Why can't you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Why can't you hear me? Now you can hear me. Wee! Yes, it's Teresa Palmer here. Guys, we've already been laughing and giggling this morning because we have an amazing guest who is bringing the high vibes only. You're my kind of people. I love this.
I know.
That's right.
You guys, we have Dr. Phabillia Afflack with us, also known as Dr. Phabby. Or Dr. Fabulous.
Fabulous.
She is an OBGYN here in California. I'm going to do a little like squish together bio for you really quick. Okay. So all of our listeners know a little bit about you. These are some of my favorite things from your bio. She moved out here from New York City where she started her work and her love for holistic medicine and OBGYN care. She volunteered at the Hale House, a Harlem center for children born to addicts. And that is where she learned the healing power of love. Something that stood out to me from your bio that just took my breath away was that you enjoy treating patients as whole beings and understanding that one's emotional suffering can manifest itself in physical pain, and that you admire that women are three-dimensional beings, mind, body, and spirit, and recognize the importance of treating them as such to achieve a well-balanced lifestyle. I mean, what? That's incredible. I want to be your patient.
Yes.
So welcome to the show.
I'm so excited. You don't understand. I'm really excited.
Thank you
my
for being
goodness.
here. We're honored.
We've been fans of yours for such a long time, and I've done such a deep dive on just into your work, and it's so unique. I find it so unique. And I know that you're an OBGYN, but you actually have been referred to as a bit of a secret midwife at heart.
Yes.
And I would say that is an incredible compliment. Talk about this work and why it's unique and where it comes from, because it's so special and we need so many more of you.
Well, let me start by saying that I've wanted to be an obstetrician and gynecologist since I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
So my mom, and I speak French. French is my first language. And a lot of people, my mom would say, how in the world at 8 years old, do you even know what that is? And I said, I want to take care of women. And it was very interesting. But I say this to people because it's not a job, but rather a calling. It's a calling. And anybody who has a profession as I do, when you're entering into a very private space, which is a pregnancy, it's a different stage of life. It is, you can't just enter it like that. You have to be welcomed in, so to speak, Mm-hmm. And that's why, for me, I don't find it insulting when people tell me I'm a secret midwife, because midwifery was there before obstetrics was there. So, so you're really activating and speaking to my person, should I say, to my soul when you're saying that, because I've done my job. And when I enter into a space, I want the person to understand that they are empowered in that space and that I'm an invited guest. And to explain to them that birth occurs naturally. I'm there for the what if. I'm there to observe and to witness and to assist. That's all. I don't do the birth. Let's be clear. I don't do any birth whatsoever. You're birthing, right?
Yes. I love that. I love that hands-off approach.
Exactly.
It's so vital. I read this thing that how you talk about vulnerability in people and in women who are about to give birth, and you say that the vulnerability is no longer in you, it's in me. And you sit on the floor.
Yes.
So you come and you sit on the floor and you come into this environment as a friend and you're safe and you're encouraging and you take that vulnerability. Like I actually was speechless when I read that. It's such a remarkable way of creating the kind of trusting environment that we all need with our caretakers. And I so appreciate you, and I hope that you're able to inspire so many other caretakers to take that approach, because it is so unique. I think that's why I was speechless. You don't hear that very often, that you're so willing to take on that place and that you want to be sort of a bystander or an observer to the process, let it unfold in the way it naturally should. And you're there for the what if. It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's why we're such big fans.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. But I'm also big fans of you. You are doing amazing work. You're creating a space for women to speak and to listen and to advocate. That's amazing. That's something we need.
I first heard you speak at the Business of Being Born event, and I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I just loved you so much. Instantly, I was like, how do I be her best friend? Like, can we hang out? But you were actually talking a little bit about someone that was like a mentor to you when you were in New York City, and this is somebody that you learned under. And I just would love you to speak a little bit more about like your coming up in school and just kind of where you've put this all together, where you were like, okay, this is what I want for my career. Like I want to be an OBGYN, but this is how I want to, because you said that you had like, I don't remember exactly the name of the person, but you said that the way that they taught you was such a, beautiful, open and unique way as to, the way other OBGYNs learn.
Right. I was able to be taught by this wonderful OBGYN. His name was Dr. Magdi Mikhail. And he was trained in the Royal Academy of Obstetrics. And so in London, their model is what I think is the best model ever. When you find out you're pregnant, you go to a midwife, you're assigned a midwife. You are automatically seen as pregnancy is not a problem. It's nothing. It's natural. So midwifery care is the first thing. Only if there's a medical need for you to see an obstetrician. So, and right from the point you find out you're pregnant, then they say, well, where do you want to deliver? At home or in the hospital? That's what they say. And so it's not something that is unusual. So my training was with midwives. I learned how to do deliveries with midwives. So it's not anything that, oh, well, you're like a midwife. Well, that's how I was taught, the hands-off approach. We had water births. We're one of the very few hospitals that had water birth. And so I only know midwifery care as it stands the way it is. So my approach to it is through the physiology of birth. So the physiology of birth is observation. So the more you see normal, the more you're able to pick up abnormality. And it's not the other way around. I think medicine now is something is wrong. Something is always wrong.
Yes.
And so you can't differentiate normal, And it's interesting because even when I speak of normal, what is normal now? What was normal 10 years ago is not normal today. Normal means norm, right? So people can say, well, inducing at 39 weeks is normal now. Well, is it? It's not. Is it? Yeah. It wasn't normal 10 years ago. Now it's part of the norm. But so that's why I emphasize physiology of birth, because we have to change our language now, just the same way as when we say organic. What does it mean right now? It means so many very different things. So our language has to change. So in training that's how I learned my practice. I was always an odd doctor, even in training.
Really?
Yes, I would have comments that people would say. I'll never forget this one comment in my evaluation. They said, "Oh, Dr. Afflack is too close to her patients." So I said to them, "Okay, well, does this talk about my knowledge, my skills, any of that? No. So that's an opinion that you have of me." And I say to them, the day I stop honing into my humanity is the day I will stop practicing medicine.
Oh,
wow.
I love that. Your critique to me is a compliment, right?
Right.
I read that and I
that's a part of your skill set.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. But isn't it interesting? It's like, what? Should I be so desensitized, lose my empathy? That's what makes us special, is the empathy. Right?
Yes.
Or else we're robots. What is that? I don't understand.
Do you have any memories of your patients in those early days? Like anyone specifically who really taught you oh, this is what is needed, the conversation, the holding their hand through, maybe there's generational trauma, maybe there's a history of sexual abuse. Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Okay, so there's this one, I will never forget this one lady because she was my last patient at 4:30 in the afternoon, of course, 4:30 in the afternoon, ready to go home. And here she comes and she's well made up, very well dressed, just wonderful, very poised. And she's in her 40s, never had children. And she comes because she's having pain. And I said, okay, let's talk about this pain that you have. And she says, well, I need you to remove all my uterus, everything, because I'm having way too much pain. And I said to her, oh, why? And I said, okay, so what is it? And she says, well, I have fibroids. And I said, okay. And then she said to me, besides, I was never meant to have kids. And I said, well, that's a lie from the pit of hell. Why? I said, well, that's a lie from the pit of hell. Why would you say such a thing? And then I remember reaching out to her and removing myself from my seat, getting closer to her, and just said, can I hold your hand? And she moved back and she looked at me and I said, tell me why you're saying such a thing about you. And that's when she opened up and the floodgates came out.
Oh my God.
She told me how she was abused since she was a child and she was, how she was molested. All these things just came out of her. And this is why her womb was associated with trauma. And her being, everything about reproduction, everything that had to do with her period, she wanted to remove the pain. Yeah. So the pain was associated with her trauma. And so I invited her before. I said, can you just work with me for 9 months? So I had her come every month just to see me, just to talk for an hour. And I didn't give her, I gave her pain medication initially. And then over time, we removed those pain medication. And she had no more pain. And she was, that she just needed, she needed somebody to listen to her. Yeah. Here was the manifestation of the pain, right? Yeah. It hyphenated, it went higher. We did something about the fibroids, but she didn't have to have her uterus removed.
Right.
She didn't have to have part of herself. She was able to now speak lovingly of herself. She started seeing what she can do, empowering herself. I kept telling her, I see you in the stadium talking to women, empowering them and doing this. I said, why do you keep saying this about me? And I said, you're going to write a book. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I was just throwing things at her just because the words that we say to ourselves are worse than the thoughts that we say are worse. So finally, somebody is here to tell her the truth and to undo the false narrative that's being translated into our mind. Well, the same applies with pregnancy. Pregnancy, you create this new identity called motherhood. Yeah. You actually don't just birth a baby, but you birth yourself. And through that, you start discovering who you are. But you have to go through this. I was just talking to somebody saying, like, you're the first teacher to your child. You can't teach something that you have not overcome. You can't, or you're not walking through. And the reality, we try to make everything perfect, right? We try to have the right clothes, the right set of furniture, everything. And I try to say, they don't care about nothing. If you walk out right now, have a baby, you have everything you need for the baby. Everything. Yeah. You have the food and you have the clothes and you have you. That's all this baby needs.
It's so true.
It doesn't need anything else.
Oh my God, you're so right. And that is such an such a beautiful story, because you know what it shows me? It's like, I know it's like part of the reason why I'm sure everybody just loves you, and why I fell in love with you hearing you speak, because what you did is you saw her and you showed her like human connection, and you were like, wait, like, let me just hold your hand. Let me just ask you this question. And like so many times I have to say, the gynecologist that I saw, she was an OBGYN before I got with, my midwife, but she was always looking at her like iPad and clipboard, and she never knew my name. It was just like, she would, I had like all these things going on, but I remember that she would she never really knew who I was, and she'd always have to like find it. And then she would kind of look at me for a second, and I was like, she never saw me. And then when I told her that I wanted, not at all. And when I wanted to have a home birth, I was like talking to her about it, and she was like, if that's what you want to do. Cause I was like, I want to do a natural birth. I want to do an unmedicated birth, it's just like 10 years ago. And she was like, sure, you could try that. And I was like, okay. And like, it just felt so flippant. But I remember like walking her through some of the things I had going on in my body, and just nothing, there was no connection. My point being that like this woman walks into your office, you immediately see her. You see her like in, insides, and you're just like making this connection with her, and it's so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that story, because it's so true. And we do say to women all the time, when we first had our kids, we ordered everything, right? All the onesies, all the blankets, all the furniture. And then the two kids afterwards, I'm like, no one's had a crib. Like there's same. Right? Like there's nothing, like the baby sleeps, right? The baby sleeps with me. And when people ask us, like, what do you need? I'm like, nothing. Like a handful of onesies, like maybe a blanket if you want to do that. But really, like, just stay in bed. Stay in bed and like snuggle that baby.
My kid never used the crib. I bought it with my first, and it just like held toys. So I was like, oh, that's where we put the toys.
Oh my God.
That's right.
A storage container.
And it doesn't matter. Like I remember for my first child, like I remember bringing home, and my husband's like, babe, why is she crying? I said, I don't know why she's crying, but you're a doctor. I said, what does that have to do with anything? I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't mean anything. It's like,
oh my God.
For some reason, the knowledge and my education is supposed to make me like this
no, exactly.
This mother that knows. I said, no, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
How was that? How was your first birth and entrance into motherhood then? Like, coming from that whole world.
Well, here's interesting part is that even though I was like this, I was still in an allopathic training, right? So after my daughter was born is when I said, oh no, I'm changing the way I'm doing medicine. And the reason why is because while I was prepared and fine for labor, nobody prepared me for parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was. I was like, I feel so ill prepared. I feel like, there's a lie here. There's a lie that's being told. Everybody was telling me how I was going to be in love with my child, how this bell is going to ring and I'm going to just be perfect, right? I got out of there and I was like, what just happened? I was like,
so true.
What is going on? Okay. I explained to somebody that it felt like an outer body experience. And I was going through the motion. And but nobody had told me I was going to experience that. Nobody told me that I was walking around and I would have these imagination of what if I drop my baby and that baby's going to die, things like that.
Yes.
So I thought I was crazy. I thought something was wrong with me. And it wasn't until you speak to other people honestly and you say, you know what, I'm not doing well right now. And I started saying, oh, okay. So I'm going to start preparing women and preparing actually the family for what's about to happen. So I was introduced to the 4th trimester. The stuff that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the 4th trimester. Come to realize that birth is just like the doorway. It's just the beginning.
That's so true.
That's right.
My practice is all in preparation for parenthood. I'm not just preparing your body for labor. I'm preparing you for the journey that you're about to undertake, So, and both for mom and dad.
So what are you, because I've read that about you. I read that, what you said before, that no one really prepared you for motherhood and that you went through somewhat of a identity crisis. And correct. I think you speak for so many other people out there whose lives are just rocked after they have this little tiny baby that they're trying to feed and figure out some sort of schedule. Where do I put my baby to sleep? Like for you in your practice, how do you prepare mothers? And for those listening who don't get to work with you, what are some things that you can share? Like how important is it to be prepared and what can people do to set themselves up for success?
Okay. Well, for the one thing, especially if you have a partner, you have to understand that your communication, the way you communicate to one another and your language is going to be very different. So many times, I tell, especially if you have a relationship with somebody that you've been friends with, it's like your friends. Well, your dynamics they're going to change. You're no longer going to be, girlfriend and boyfriend. You're not going to be like that. It's not going to be like that, right? It's not going to be like, it's going to be mother and father. And what does that look like? Oftentimes, we resort to what we know and what we see. So in our insecurity, we resort to what we know, what we see. And we often say, I want to be the 2.0 version of my parents. Or I don't want to do what my parents did. But guess what? You will fall into those habits because that's all you know. And so it's building that security. And the security is the couple. A lot of times we think that if we put the baby at the center, then we are going to be okay. No, it's the opposite. You got to put the coupling at the center. If you guys are the foundation of your family, if the house is not strong, we learned from the 3 little pigs, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. You got to have a solid foundation. So I start by you two. Let's talk about your communication, how you think. in that space of vulnerability is both of you, right? She's vulnerable. She's learning that the control of her body is there's no control.
Yeah.
You've let go of that, right?
Right.
Because your body is going through changes that you don't know. Where he is going through things too, and he's not speaking of them. He's trying to. I've once had a father where they said to me, well, let's talk about, what your birth plan is going to look like. Whatever she wants, Dr. Afflack, whatever she wants. I said, no, that doesn't fly with me, whatever she wants. I said, because when you say whatever she wants, what you're really saying, you're removing your responsibility and accountability. You're allowing her to make all the decision and all the choices. And if she makes a wrong decision, then you have the power to blame shift. That doesn't fly with me. I create unity. You both will come to an agreement and a decision together because it took two of you to make this child.
Yes.
And you have no right to say, I know it's what the world wants you to do, right? But that's not fair. It's too much for one person to take that responsibility for. So you both have to make those. And whether you agree or you don't agree, you will come to an agreement. And that's what parenthood is. Sometimes, and I said that the reality is you're going to jack up your kids. That's the truth. Let's be real. We are going to jack up our kids. Okay?
So true.
So we're going to jack up. So let's throw that out the door. We're going to jack them up. But what are we going to teach them? How to get back up.
Yeah, that's right.
How to get back up and not to beat ourselves or slit our wrists, but to come up and own up to I'm sorry, I did wrong. But here's what I'm going to do, and not forgiveness, right? That's what you're teaching. So, but you have to learn this as a couple first.
Yeah.
You got to learn this. And that's what we do. Yeah. So the first trimester looks like that. The second trimester, it becomes more comfortable. Now, I tell all my pregnant women, you guys have to have sex. Okay?
Yes.
Sex is important. It's intimacy. Okay. Yeah,
that's right.
Now, a lot of times they can't have sex. So I said, okay, we're going to do a little homework. So what's the homework? The homework is you guys get naked and you sit on the bed and you just look at each other.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
They're like,
I love that.
Because you know what it is with that is that you can't hide from your nakedness. You can't hide.
Wow.
You totally see each other. And you gradually reintroduce each other, embracing, because he just loves you. He loves you. And you need to hear that. You need to hear how much you're loved, how beautiful you are. And that's what we do. We get to that because, it's going to benefit us in the third trimester when we try to, prepare for labor,
That's right.
You know what I mean? Yes.
Yes. Sex is also a great stress reliever during pregnancy. So your anxiety,
it is. It reinforced the connection. That's what it does.
I love the intimacy, intimacy. Do you remember how intimacy, people break it down to intimacy, or whatever. It's so beautiful because it's so true, because that is what it is. That's when I always feel the closest to my man, and I can see him and I can see what he needs and his vulnerabilities. And it's such a beautiful way of connecting. And then it's so important to weave that in once the kids are here, because it's so easy to lose sight of that intimate connection. It doesn't have to just be about your sexuality. It's also just about deep connection, looking at each other into each other's eyes. That sort of intimacy is so beautiful and so real. And I love how vulnerable it is. I love the idea of sitting on the bed, being naked and just looking at each other.
That's right.
I would be the type to look away or get awkward, but actually if I can dive into the uncomfortable feeling, that is true intimacy to me.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it. Once we finish here, I'm going to be like, hubby, come into the room. We're getting naked. Right. We're not having sex, but we're just going to look at each other. Woo!
I love it.
Oh my God.
It's great.
I love it
That's perfect.
I love it so much.
So then in the third trimester, so then what, in your practice, like when you're preparing for birth and everything, like then how do you work with couples in that stage? And then is that where you start preparing them for the fourth trimester? Okay.
Yeah. So the third trimester, we're preparing now the home, right?
Yeah.
We're preparing the home for the new arrival. So oftentimes women nest, right? So we look at the 360 version of the family. What does it look like? So I start talking about, so how is it going to look when the baby comes home? Who's going to come and help you cook? Who's going to clean? Yes. Our friend's going to come over. What does that look like? If you have a dog, who's dog sitting? Because the thing is, the way it should look that mom focuses on baby and dad focuses on mom and everybody else focuses on the family. That's how it looks. Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to the house to the hostess. Nobody comes in empty handed. So if people come and visit you, they come with a task at hand. They bring you food, they're doing your laundry, or they're doing something.
Yes.
You are not meant 100%. To host. That's like the worst thing. Can you imagine people come, let's see the baby?
Yes.
Trying to entertain them. No. It's more like, hey, we haven't eaten. Can you bring some food? So we look at the home because we're trying to, it takes 3 months to establish a habit, 3 months for you to start a routine. So we're preparing the home for what's next, because as soon as this baby comes, your life is going to be different. But if we prepare around it, then we will feel more at ease, because I guarantee you, the birth of the father, which is to me so funny, it always happens at birth. Okay. For some reason, why do they not get it until then? I don't know. I don't know. Things are not real. When she goes into labor, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this is for real. This is really happening. This is really happening. And this is another reasons why I actually talk to the husband. I say, do you want to deliver? If you don't deliver, then you're cutting the cord. They're like, why? I said, listen to me. You're cutting that cord. And they go, why? Because that's your birth. Okay.
Yeah.
The father makes the placenta, right? It's the genes of the father that makes the placenta. Him cutting the cord is actually, there's a reason why he feels overwhelmed and stressed and freaked out, right? It's not because, it's cutting a cord. You just witnessed her pushing a baby out. Are you kidding me? Cutting a cord is scary. No, it's not. It's not.
Oh my gosh.
It's what you're feeling is all the responsibility. Yeah. You're looking at your family, you're like, oh my God, this is real. This is my family. This is it. All of this is rushing in. But the minute he cuts the cord, he overcomes that fear.
Yeah.
He overcomes that overwhelm. He actually says, I did it. So what does that say? Any trials or tribulation that presents to him as a father, he will be able to overcome. Because he overcame that fear, that worry, that whole thing. He overcame it. And now he could prowl around like the lion he is, like lions, they just prowl. They just like, they just prowl. They just like, wow. The only time a lion comes in is when the territory is being invaded. And so that's really how the father, they don't care about how you give birth, what you give birth. What they care about safety and security, which is what a father is. Provide safety and security. Mother is all about character, love, development, atmosphere, environment of my children. These are the roles that are fatherhood and motherhood, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why they both give birth, right? So you're giving birth to a child, you're giving birth to yourself as motherhood, you're giving birth to fatherhood, and your family is birthing. Hello, that's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Oh my God.
It's a celebration.
It
right?
is.
Oh my gosh.
And
it
that's
really
what,
is.
yeah. And that's what I want to celebrate in that moment. But we, for some reason, there's so much fear around it.
Mm-hmm.
We forgot the joy. We forgot the excitement. We forgot the,
Yes.
We're supposed to.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I remember when I heard you speak before, we were talking about the environment at the hospital, because right. I remember like when I gave birth with my daughter, which was, 7 years ago, that it was different. Like it was before COVID, you could really at the hospital that I gave birth at. So that was at Cedars, but it was wonderful. Like I had a great team of people and I had an amazing birth. But my last birth with my daughter, the energy in the hospital was intense. It was 2020 and it was just, everyone was scared. They were scared. The energy was not good. And I was like, wow, this feels like a really different place, like really different from when I was there before. And yes, I mean, it was 2020, so that's for sure. But your environment does do a lot for you. Like, you walk into an environment where you want to cheer and celebrate and like have this entrance into motherhood. But then you have someone who is telling you, you have to get on the bed. You have to do this. Like when it's not what you've been told, follow your intuition and like, kind of ride the waves. And then you get there and you just feel a little like jerky, like everything just feels a little off, And so, I feel like with somebody like you, it's not going to be that experience, right? Because you're going to be there as a champion and people are going to know. My doctor I had at the time was Dr. Goldberg. And like, even as crazy as the hospital was when I was there, Dr. Goldberg, people know that his patients, tend to like, you have a rapport. And it's, if Dr. Goldberg says she wants to birth her baby on the floor and, doesn't want to get on the bed, then she's going to do that,
Right.
But it's just not always like that. So the energy in a hospital versus a home versus a birth center, it is a different thing. So you kind of need to know like, what do you need? Or
that's so true, Sarah. And I actually have a question based off of what you're saying. Yeah, is if you're in a situation and you don't have access to someone like Dr. Fabulous, I think a lot of people are interested in the idea of having a doula. Would you recommend like surrounding yourself with at least a doula that can advocate for you? I know they don't have as many rights in the hospital system, but I think what you're saying, Sarah, is so true. You can go into a hospital situation and you have all the best intentions and you want to follow the way you want to give birth, but then you get there, and I was just at a birth recently and this happened, and it was like one thing after the next. It was like that one thing went a little bit different than planned. And then there was another intervention. And then it was like, now there'll be another intervention. Now there'll be another. And all you're thinking is, I just want my baby to be healthy. So it's so easy in that moment just to be like, let's just go with the cascade of interventions. Okay, I will get the epidural. Or, okay, we will use forceps. If you think it's safer for me, then I'll do that. Because you want to have a healthy baby. So how do you protect yourself in that environment? If you don't have your Dr. Fabi, like what do you do? Because obviously the outcome is, I just want everyone to be healthy.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that because I do work with doulas. I think doulas are great. Right. And you have to understand the way we live in a system right now that just needs to change.
It does.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It does needs to change. And we're very fear oriented in every aspect. So in the hospital setting right now, it's also going through its own fears, right? Mm-hmm. The hospital itself is going through its own fears. Let me just give you a little bit of background that labor and delivery nurses, the reason why they decided to become labor and delivery is because their primary goal is to advocate. That was their advocacy. They were once upon a time one-on-one with their patient. They would labor with them. They would just encourage them. They would do all those things. That's what they did. So here comes now modern medicine that now that labor and delivery nurse can no longer be one-to-one with her client. Now she has 3 or 4. She can't do what she does. So now the client is left alone, right? No advocacy. So here comes a doula. The doula was birthed out of that need. It was a need for that. Yeah. Okay. So the doula comes in. Now she stands in the gap for the advocacy of the patient, right? Now, the doctor feels, oh, well, you're interfering. You think I'm not speaking for you. Well, the thing is that when you see 40 patients, you don't have time to be knowing your patient.
That's right.
But that doula comes in at 5 weeks with you. And guess what? They create a relationship that is built on trust.
Yeah.
So I will trust my doula over anybody because she's been with me. She knows me. She understands me. The doctor didn't have time because they had to see 40 patients. Do you understand? Nor does the nurse that sees you 5 minutes ago, So you have that doula that theirs. Now it's not going to just be enough. There's a need for you to start advocating for yourself.
Yes.
And it is great to have a doula. I think a doula is important to have, to help you, to tell you, oh, you know what? This doctor works really well. You work because I've worked with this doctor, or this person is really good. I work and they're great. It's not just that they do, but they do so much more.
Yeah.
But you need collaborative care.
Yeah. It's
a collaborative model. How do we learn to work together and put the client at the center? How do we find ourselves working together? I was one time in a hospital, and when the nurse got really upset because the doula came in, she came in and she was fine with her client. In comes the doula. Now everything changes. And she says, I don't understand. I mean, we were fine before that doula came in and blah, blah, blah. And she just keeps coming in and out and complaining. And then I said to her, you need to stop complaining to me. I don't understand why you're complaining. You have a solution. You mean to tell me that doula that was there with her from 6 weeks, a gestation, has been in her house, knows her family, knows her husband, knows her desires, knows everything. And you come in 5 minutes, you think she's going to trust you over the doula? No. What you can do though, is you can swallow your pride.
Yeah.
And pull the doula aside and says, how can I help you make her comfortable? How about that? How about we do that? Right?
That's amazing.
So she has an opportunity. We have an opportunity to not look each other, even for the doula, because there's some doulas that are just going to go one direction too.
Yeah.
Just going to go one direction. But how do we work together? How do we put our clients back in the center by we need to collaborate one another. This is one of the reasons why I do what we call a team meeting.
Oh, nice. Okay.
At 36 weeks, we meet together. I want the client to be surrounded by the team that will be with you.
Oh, so
that
smart.
Will hold space with you.
I've never thought of that.
That's so cool.
That's so
That's
smart.
right. You do that. You create and use so that we all have your best interests at hand. So you can feel comfortable and relax, because labor occurs in the parasympathetic. You're not in the fight or flight where you have to self-protect. You'll never go in labor properly. And when you enter in a hospital, that's what you are. You're in fight or flight. You're self-protective mode. It takes time for you to enter into the parasympathetic system. Home birth is your home, and this flight, you're naturally going to be in the parasympathetic system, right?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
So this is why you got to create an environment of safety for them. And so surrounding yourself with a team that has your interests at hand. And that's truly the patient-centered care model.
Yeah.
That is truly a patient-centered care model. That's what we have to change.
Yeah. You're so right.
And so this means, like, Sarah, you always say this as well. It is about your caretaker. It's about like, who is that person that you choose? And if it feels off, and if they're looking at you like you're just a number on a list, that is not the caretaker that you should be going with. You need to feel like a personal connection with them, that they look you in the eyes and they hear you and they see you, and they're like, have open energy about like what your preferences are and what your instincts are. Like, they're there to advocate for you. So I think everything you're saying is so true, and it starts with caretaker and then doula, and like finding that team. It's almost like it's too late once you're with a caretaker, and it's like you're so far down the line. You just hope that you have your partners advocating for you, and that you find moments of being able to advocate for yourself during the birth, or that your doula is really showing up for you. But really it starts with like finding your version of Dr. Phabi, of the person who's going to look at you and like care about you and really like nurture you and meet you with love and compassion first and foremost. I think that's right. It's so integral.
I definitely also just would say for anybody listening right now, and if you're like, I don't know, already halfway into your pregnancy and you kind of have these big feelings and you're like, oh, this has been in the back of my mind and now I'm sort of like, am I too far into it? I would say no. At any point, if you decide that you're ready to like switch care providers, you should just go and interview people. Like, that's what I did. I went around and met with different care providers, and I was like, who's on my insurance list? Who isn't? Okay. And so then I like met with people who were covered by insurance. And then I met with a midwife who wasn't covered by insurance, and then wrote a letter to get my care covered to my insurance company.
Yeah. I wanted to add to what you said, because there is a cutoff. We deal with global care. I'm going to get in trouble saying this, but I really think insurance company are the mafia, but whatever. And so the thing is that, just in terms of for a practice, if they start taking, there's a cutoff time when people will not take you. And so if you start off and you are starting to feel, it is important that that intuition, that mother intuition is developing inside you. Yep. You got to follow it and trust you. Okay. It is developing. Don't sleep on it. If you don't wait till the last minute, because the thing is especially if you're going in through insurance, at 28 weeks, a lot of people will not take patients that are transferred. Wow. At 28 weeks, it's a cutoff. And the reason being, and as you said, Sarah, like, you have to get a letter from your insurance that the provider agrees to get that cost of care, because the cost of care is what global care is. You need a certain amount of number of visits for them to get paid. So this is why they don't take you.
It's crazy.
They don't take you because of the number, right? So you really have a cutoff of 28 weeks before anybody takes you on if you're using insurance. Now, if you're not using insurance, then go ahead, do whatever you want, But if you're caught up in your insurance, you have a cutoff time.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And what's crazy is that if you look into, because I'm one of those people that like calls insurance companies and then calls the hospital, and I find out all the numbers from everybody. But if you get the real numbers of what they would charge, like what a provider would actually charge you, the patient, versus what is being charged to the insurance company, what a hospital is like charging insurance company, charging you. The numbers are so different. It's crazy. Yeah. It's bananas.
So nuts.
And so
that is
it's nuts. I mean, our system is so broken. So like, it's really frustrating. So if there's a way to figure it out outside of that system, writing a letter to get it covered, even though you're with a provider that isn't covered, is something to look into. I'm curious, before we get to the end of our recording here, is there a birth that really stands out to you that you were a part of, like that you remember that you're just like, oh, that one was like blew my mind in some way?
Oh man, you're putting it into a spot, but I know. Well, because I actually do. And it was not too long ago. Yeah. So I had a client that, she had 2 hospital births, and she found me through, I don't know where she found me. She's like, oh, I really want a home birth, because I do both. I do both home birth and hospital birth. And, she basically was saying, throughout, she was worried and she was concerned. Well, come at a certain gestational age, around 34 weeks or so, the baby presented in a different position, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, I said, oh, well, third time mom, she'll be fine. 36 weeks. If the baby doesn't turn, I'm going to try to turn. So we go and do that. And then we attempted, to turn. The baby said, no way. That's not happening. The heart rate went down. And I said, you know what? This baby is not going to come out that way. It's not going to happen. So, I think your baby is going to come out the other way. Right?
Yes.
And so I said, I know where one place in Cedars, they'll do a certain delivery position, and I can refer you, but it won't be me. And she was like, I don't know. I don't want to try. Or we could do a C-section. And she goes, I don't know. I don't want. I said, or
we can
continue and do it at home. Now she trusts me and she believes, and I trust her. And I remember throughout the whole time, she was just worried. I held the space. And every time I'm telling her, this is how it's going to be. It's going to be so fast and so easy. You're going to blink. It's going to come out.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to be. Every time she would call me, text me. Oh, I said, you're going to be so fast. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be this every single time. Her husband was the most relaxed person I've ever known. Like, he was just chill. And that's what's important too, to highlight how your partner is, how much of an influence your partner has in that moment. He was like, babe, I believe it. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Now comes the day, and, here she is, and she goes into labor. I kid you not. It went so fast.
Oh my god!
There's no way she would have ever made it into the hospital because that baby just shot out. Okay. And when she pushed the rest of the body out, she yelled. She gave out a yell. The yell she gave out didn't leave one person without tears, because it was the amount of fear and worry that she had that she let out. And then the let out was like, it was like,
yes.
Wow.
Yes. Oh my God. Goosebumps.
She could not believe. And she felt so empowered. So strong. So it was,
how remarkable.
I cried. Everybody cried. Everybody was like crying. It was the most beautiful.
I have tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
I
know.
And,
a lot of people say to me, oh, Phabillia, are you going to now do this? And I said, this was unique for her. This was a relationship I had developed with her. I can see what would have been this. She did not want to go, and I held that for her. This is why I say that every pregnancy is different. People tell me, how is it going to be with you, doctor? I don't know. I've never had a baby with you. We'll see how it goes, And it was just so, I mean, I even have this recent one that I had where she was just afraid of labor herself, like completely afraid of labor. And I said, I'm praying for you for labor to sneak up on you and you're not even aware.
Yeah.
So the whole time she's worried about the doula coming in, worried about me coming in too early. I hear her on the phone. I said, dude, you're in labor. She says, are you sure? I'm not sure. Are you sure this is not food poisoning? I said, no, you're in labor. So we get to the hospital. She pushes this baby out she went from 3 centimeters to completely pushing a baby in 1 hour.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That was amazing for her. She was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And
I said, my gosh.
Yeah.
That is special.
I tell my patients that, you know what? When it comes time to labor, I want to be dreaming about you.
Yes.
I want to be dreaming about your labor. I want to visualize and that's how I want to be with you.
Wow.
That connection is so special. And just hearing you describe that when you talk about her yell that she let out, I immediately got tears in my eyes because I can like almost feel it in my body because I just know that feeling of that yell afterwards of like everything that sort of built up through the whole thing. And I remember because I had such a special doctor, like the yell I had afterwards where it was like, oh my God, thank God, and I was like, and as soon as I looked at my doctor, which is why, and my doctor everybody knows has passed away. So, but that as soon as I looked at him, I said, that was so hard, but it was almost like a relationship that you have, almost like a parental relationship where I was just like, it's like, you believe that we did that? Like, I just I was so connected to him to be like, that was so hard. And he was like, yeah, but you did it. Like you did it.
That's
and
right.
I was just like, it was so special. And thinking about your patients and like, people that don't get that kind of care and don't know that exists, because you can find somebody and like, you can look around in your town and like find out, go on Facebook, like type it in, like, does anybody have like a great care provider, that they feel really connected to? I want to meet that person. But just because I think about the access that we have to somebody like you, where I could be like, please, Dr. Fabi, can I have a baby with you?
Same. And, I'm like already thinking about it.
But just such a dream. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm like, want to go have a baby right now. My vibes are so high. I'm so excited.
I know. You bring the high vibes. I was wearing my high vibes only t-shirt yesterday. I was like, high vibes only. You bring them. And it's what you need, like on this journey. It's such a beautiful journey, but to have someone there by your side advocating with that positive energy and making you feel empowered and that you're able to do this. It's so remarkable. Thank you so much for coming and being on the Mother Days. Dr. Fabi, you are so special and we appreciate your time. Where can you tell everyone where they can continue looking at your stuff and getting to know more about your story?
Well, you can find me. So I actually opened an office in Beverly Hills recently with 2 midwives. So that's awesome. I'm also in Calabasas. So you can find me on www.fabulouscare.com. And I have all my information there. Yeah. And also, I guess you could also find me on Instagram at fabulouscare.com too. Yeah.
And that's fabulous with a PH.
PH.
Yes. PH.
That's right.
Just a fun fact about that is because, when people can say my first name is Phabillia. So they would have trouble saying my name, Phabillia. So I would just say, just call me Fabulous.
That's so good. My gosh. And you really are.
But Phabillia is such a beautiful name. Where did your parents get the name Phabillia? It's beautiful.
Oh, well, it's my heritage. So my name is Syrian. Both of my names are Syrian. So my great-grandfather was Syrian. So that's why.
Wow.
I love beautiful.
It. Well, thank you so much for being here. You're such an amazing soul and you just light me up. I just like hearing you speak lights me up.
I want to go give birth. I want to get naked with my husband on the bed I don't want to go give birth.
No, she's going to go get naked right now is what she's going to do.
Intimacy.
She's like, Mark, go take your clothes off. Take your clothes off. We got to do this.
Let's go. Cross your legs. We're looking at each other. I love it.
Oh my God. Well, Daisies, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Dr. Phabillia Afflack, we are so honored and grateful that you were here today to share your wisdom and your beautiful light and energy. And I know that you've just touched so many souls. And so thank you for being here today. Bye, Daisies.
Bye, Daisies.